ओके, क्लिक किया सर।
हाँ, ऊपर रिकॉर्डिंग बटन चालू है आपके पास?
हाँ सर,
वहाँ
स्टार्ट
पे?
हुआ। हाँ सर।
हाँ, अभी नीचे फिर यहाँ रिकॉर्ड बटन वहां पे देखो, राइट?
हाँ
वहां पे स्टॉप और पॉज बोल का है क्या बटन? पॉज
हाँ,
स्टॉप
पॉज
बोल
और
का है?
स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग।
हाँ, वो पॉज करो मैडम, पॉज रिकॉर्डिंग करो 1 मिनट।
Good morning, everybody. This is SL Madam, and today I think you are all at home and having this uh, classes at home. That is, we are having your home coaching. So everyone is um, interested to learn and not waste your times at home, I feel. And I hope that you all are with your books, particularly a notebook to make a note of whatever I teach today. It's better if you note down the important points because it becomes a revision for you. When I am not available, you can just overview the points for this topic, and which will make you more good at this topic. Before we start anything else, I hope that every student is with a notebook and a pen to have all the points to be noted out, because when you note out all the points, it will be better for you to answer the objective questions related to this topic. We know that P block elements is one of the important section of the first year and second year syllabus together, because this topic is not dealt as only first year topic. It is dealt in two sections, in first year as well as second year, because it is having more number of groups to be dealt, that is from 13 to group 18. As a first year topic, you are going with the 13 and 14 group elements. And with your second year syllabus, you are going from 15 to 18 group elements. So as we have to go with the first year syllabus, that is group 13 and group 14 elements, that is boron family and carbon family together. But in today's session, we will go with only the boron family, that is the group 13 elements. So let us first have just the synopsis of this part. We know that group 13 elements, that is boron family, has the elements starting from boron, aluminium, gallium, indium, and thallium. All these are belonging to the 13 group elements. As you can see, boron, the symbol for boron will be B, aluminium Al, gallium Ga, indium In, and thallium Tl are the members of group 13 elements. Out of these elements, boron is the only non-metal, while the rest of the elements are metals. That means aluminium, gallium, indium, and thallium. All these are metals except boron, which is a non-metal. Now, let us talk about some of the important properties of these elements. We can categorize the properties into three sections as atomic properties, physical properties, and chemical properties. Chemical properties are those where we will study about the reactivity of these elements with different elements like oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and their stable oxide states, everything there. Now let us to begin with some of the important properties. We will start up with their atomic properties. We know that every element has a general electronic configuration for a particular group. Every group elements are categorized into having a particular electronic configuration with their inert gases. And this group element, that is 13 group elements, have a general electronic configuration as Ns2Np1. This is their outermost valence shell along with their inert gases. For example, if I talk about boron, boron has the inert core of helium. Along with that, it has 2s2, 2p1. When I talk about aluminium, aluminium has an inert gas neon along with a 3s2, 3p1. Now from gallium onwards, we have the d orbitals entering. That is, for gallium, we write the inert gas as argon with 3d10, 4s2, 4p1. And for indium, we write for indium, we write krypton, 4d10, 5s2, 5p1. And for thallium, we write xenon, and here enters the f orbital as well. 4f14, 5d10, 6s2, 6p1. That is, when we talk about from fourth group onwards, that is from the fourth period onwards, we will have the entry of the d and the f orbitals coming. So now let us talk about the atomic and the ionic radii of these group elements. We know the general trend of atomic and ionic radii down the group. They usually increase as the shells are added into the orbitals. Because of that, the atomic and the ionic radii go on increasing. But particularly for this group, there is a little variation. For example, you just can see the second point. Atomic and ionic radii of group 13 elements increase from top to bottom in the group. However, the atomic radii of gallium is less than aluminium due to poor shielding effect. Why there is poor shielding effect? Because now there is an entry of the 3d electrons from gallium onwards. And we know that whenever we talk about shielding effect, the S are more having more shielding, then we talk about P, then D, and then F. So D and F are acting as poor shielding effect. That is the reason gallium will have a smaller size compared to aluminum, even though it is bottom to aluminium. So that point is because of poor shielding effect of the 3d electrons which are present in gallium, that makes it having smaller size than aluminium. Similarly, when we come down to the ionization enthalpies, we know that as we move down the group as a general trend, we know that ionization enthalpy goes on decreasing down the group. But again, because of the shielding effect here, there is, you can see there, the ionization enthalpy values as expected from the general trend do not decrease smoothly down the group. You can see the trend there. Boron is greater than thallium. Thallium is greater than gallium. Gallium is greater than aluminium. Aluminium is greater than indium. Here the trend you can see between indium and thallium. As thallium has the f electrons entering, there, because of that, there is more less shielding effect because of the f electrons. That is the reason s electrons are having more inert pair effect. That's the reason thallium will have more ionization enthalpy than indium. And as I told, between gallium and aluminium, as gallium has 3d electrons, but aluminium does not have the d electrons, therefore s electrons for gallium are difficult to remove compared to aluminium. That is the reason we talk about the trend in not decreasing smoothly. So first comes boron, which is having highest, then thallium, then gallium, then aluminium, and then indium. Between thallium and indium, because of the interference of f electrons, and between gallium and aluminium, because the interference of d electrons. Now, and as we know that atomic and ionic radii and ionization enthalpy, there is down the group, electronegativity first decreases from boron to aluminium and then increases marginally, and the reason same applies over here because of shielding effect. Then we talk about the electrode potentials over here. Down the group, electrode potential increases and the reactivities of these elements decreases down the group. Now let us have some of the physical properties of these elements. As I have already said that boron is a non-metal and boron has a very small size and its crystal structure is very strong. That is the reason it is having the highest melting point. Whereas, on contrast, we can see the rest of the elements are metals and they are soft in nature. Therefore, they will be having a low melting point. So, boron has a high melting point, whereas the rest of the elements are having low melting points. And the electrical conductivity of these elements are very high. Now let us come down to the chemical properties of these elements. Now let us first speak about the oxidation state. As we know that there are three valence electrons in their outermost shell. As there are three valence electrons, so they may have two stable oxidation state. One is +3 and one is +1. Now, out of +3 and +1, which is more stable and why? As you know that as we move down the group, +3 oxidation state stability decreases and +1 oxidation state stability increases. The reason again is the same, poor shielding effect of the D and F electrons. Now, you can see there fourth period on and onwards, you are having D and F electrons participating. D and F electrons, you know there the shielding ability is very poor. That is the reason the S electron is more attracted towards the nucleus. As S electrons are more attracted towards the nucleus, they are very difficult to remove. And then they are very difficult to remove for forming a bond. Then they cannot be utilized for bonding. Hence, the reason for this, making these elements having +1 oxidation state involving only the bonding with the p electron. And how many p electrons are there? Only one. So that is the reason +1 oxidation state is stable down. And whereas, for example, if I talk about boron and aluminium +3 oxidation state will be stable for them. Whereas for gallium, indium, and thallium, we may say that +1 oxidation will be more stable comparatively to +3 oxidation state. That is the reason we say the word inert pair effect. Inert pair effect of what? The non-participation of the s orbital. Because of what reason? The poor shielding effect by the D and the F electrons, so which is clearly mentioned in the point second and third. Okay, so let us move down to the next physical property, that is the next property of these elements, that is reaction with hydrogen now. Now, whenever we talk about the reaction with hydrogen, they usually form hydrides. Now, when we talk about boron, boron form usually dimeric or polymeric form of hydride. The simplest form of hydride of boron is diborane, that is B2H6. Whereas aluminium usually go for a polymeric hydride, and we know only one colorless solid polymeric hydride of aluminium, that is alane. When we talk about the hydrides of gallium and indium, they are not very stable. Now, when we talk about the hydrides of boron, aluminium, gallium, that is sodium boron hydride, lithium aluminium hydride, lithium gallium hydride. These all are anionic hydrides and complex anionic hydrides, and these play as a very strong reducing agents in various organic reactions. And when we compare the reactivity of these reducing agents, lithium aluminium hydride will be more strong reducing agent than sodium boron hydride. So this is what we talk about the reaction with hydrogen. Now let us talk about the reaction with the halogens. When we talk about the reaction with halogen, it is very clear that whenever these elements are treated with halogens, they usually form trihalides except thallium. Now, when we talk about their halide formation, they usually give trihalides. And these trihalides, which are formed by the reaction of this group elements, they result in the formation of halides which are having incomplete octet structure. Incomplete octet structure means You know that for an example, if I talk about boron trifluoride. Boron has a 3 valence electrons. Fluorine combines with its 3 valence electrons to form 3 bonds. Lone, one pair of electron deficient boron trifluoride becomes. Because of this reason, it can accept a pair of electrons. And when any element accepts a pair of electrons, that time it is called as Lewis acid. So any have family member of this group, that is the boron family, whenever the trihalides of the boron family are there, they are lacking of one pair of electrons to complete their octet structure, and hence they accept a pair of electrons and act as Lewis acids. So this is one of the important feature of this family. Then we talk about aluminium chloride. When we talk about aluminium chloride, anhydrous and hydrated aluminium chloride behave in two different ways. When I talk about anhydrous aluminium chloride, it is usually covalent in nature. When I talk about hydrated aluminium chloride, it is usually ionic in nature. And here it is also clearly told that aluminium chloride also behave as Lewis acid. The reason is very clear here. Aluminium ions are very small in nature and they are having high polarizing power. And because of this reason, we can say they become as ionic in nature when they get hydrated. So now the next very important point about aluminium ions is that as the size of aluminium is very small and they are having vacant d orbitals which is not available with boron. Boron, even though has a smaller size compared to aluminium, but does not have d orbitals. But aluminium, along with having small size, has vacant d orbitals. Therefore, aluminium chloride can get easily hydrolyzed in water and forming and giving an octahedral structure by forming the complex AlOH taken twice. And in this, the hybridization state of aluminium will become sp3d2. So in this way, it can extend its structure. Now let us talk about the reactivity with oxygen and the nature of the oxides formed. Now, whenever we talk about these elements form oxides at a very high temperature of the type M2O3. Thallium is an exceptional case because it will form two different types of oxide, that is Tl2O3 as well as Tl2O. So there are two forms of oxide formed by thallium. As I have said, the dominant oxidation state for thallium will be +1, more stable for thallium. That's why it will result in the formation of two different forms of oxides. Now, when we talk about the reactivity of oxygen in this group, down the group when we say the reactivity with oxygen increases. And whenever the first element when we are talking about, that is boron. Boron is usually unreactive in crystalline form. It is not at all reacting with air in crystalline form. But if it is finely divided and if it is an amorphous form, it will react with oxygen on heating to form the oxide. Now, we say that aluminium should react with oxygen, but it is not reacting with oxygen as readily. Why? Because when aluminium is exposed to air or oxygen, it will be converted to aluminium oxide, which will form a protective layer on its surface, which will avoid further reaction with the air, making that aluminium inert. That is how aluminium becomes stable or non-reactive with air or oxygen after the formation of the oxide layer. Now, when we talk about the nature of their oxides, how is the nature of their oxides? We know that when we talk about boron, boron is a non-metal, as I have discussed earlier, and it is forming an oxide. So we say that the oxide of the boron is usually acidic, weakly acidic in nature. Whereas aluminium, the oxide of aluminium is amphoteric. Whereas the other elements, that is gallium, indium, and thallium, they are alkaline in nature. That is the reason what I said, that is down the group, their basic character increases as metallic character increases down the group. This is the general trend what we can see with respect to their oxides. Now, when we talk about the reaction with nitrogen, when we talk about the reaction with the nitrogen, they produce the nitrides of the type Mn with, because plus 3 and minus 3 oxidation states make them to form a compound with Mn. But as I said, down the group, the plus 3 oxidation state goes on decreasing. The stability of plus 3 oxidation state goes on decreasing. So that's the thing what we say. The non-metals experience a decrease in electronegativity, causing these elements and nitrogen to form compounds with more covalent character. Only boron and aluminium reacts with nitrogen at high temperature to form nitrides. The reason? Because of the oxidation state. Plus 3 oxidation state for boron and aluminium is more stable compared to the rest of the elements. Now let us talk about the reaction with acids and alkalis. Usually, boron does not react with acids and alkalis even at moderate temperatures, whereas aluminium easily dissolves in mineral acids as well as aqueous alkalis. Aqueous alkalis means the alkali solutions which are prepared in water, and thus show amphoteric character. That is, aluminium behaves as amphoteric in nature. That why? Because it reacts with acids as well as alkalis, and when it is reacting with the acids and alkalis, it will be giving hydrogen gas. It will be liberating hydrogen gas along with it. But when we talk about concentrated nitric acid, when it is reacting with aluminium, it makes it passive. How? As I have said that whenever aluminium reacts with oxygen, an oxide layer is formed on its surface. Same reaction happens with concentrated nitric acid. When aluminium metal is treated with a concentrated nitric acid, initially an oxide layer is formed on the surface of the aluminium, which protects the further metal to react with the concentrated nitric acid. That is, a protective layer is formed because of aluminium undergoing oxidation with a nitric acid. Now, when we talk about the properties of these elements, we should also know the important compounds of boron. As we know that there are a large list of compounds of boron, but we will be discussing only few compounds of boron. What are these uh, compounds? The first compound is borax. Its chemical formula as it is displayed, Na2B4O7.10H2, and its name, IUPAC name or chemical name is sodium tetraborate decahydrate. Borax is a salt. So we know that whenever a salt is added to water, it undergoes hydrolysis. Hydrolysis, when it undergoes, it will be giving a mixture of salt. That is, when salt is added to water, it undergoes hydrolysis to give a mixture of acid and a base. Depending on the nature of acid and base formed, the nature of the solution is decided. For example, when borax is, as it is a salt, when it is added to water, it will be giving a mixture of sodium hydroxide and orthoboric acid. Sodium hydroxide is a strong base, whereas boric acid is a weak acid. So I am getting a mixture of two things, a strong base and a weak acid. So my resultant solution will be alkaline in nature. Why? Because I am getting strong base on hydrolysis. Similarly, the other things about borax, what we can say is that it swells up, giving borax bead, or with acids, it gives boric acid. So one of the reaction of borax, that whenever you treat borax with acids, it is resulting in the formation of boric acid. The next important compound of boron is boric acid, that is BOH taken 4 times. Now, it is having a layered structure with what units? BO3 units joined together by hydrogen bonding. As I'm saying boric acid, I'm using the word acid. So that might be making me to tell what type of an acid is it, whether it is a Lewis acid, a Bronsted acid, or an Arrhenius acid. Here, when I'm talking about the definition or the nature of this acid, it is not a protic acid. Not a protic acid means it is not donating any proton. Instead, to complete its octet structure, it will be accepting a pair of electrons. That is the reason it is acting as a Lewis acid and not a proton donor. That is why it is not a protic acid. When I talk about its reactivity or what happens when I'm heating boric acid. When I'm heating boric acid above 370 Kelvin, it will be first forming metaboric acid, which on further heating will give me boric oxide. So this is one of the reaction of boric acid upon heating. First it is getting converted to metaboric acid and then to boric oxide. Now the next important compound, a very important compound of boron is diborane. It is a hydride of boron which is utilized in most of the organic reactions. Diborane is toxic in nature, and it catches fire on exposure, and with ammonia it is giving borazine. Borazine has a formula of B3N3H6, which is also called as inorganic benzene. Inorganic benzene, which is having a structure alternative with BH and NH groups. Structure of diborane. Structure of diborane is very, very important because we are using a term over here, that is banana bonding. What is actually banana bonding and how it is there in diborane? We know that in diborane, there are terminal hydrogen atoms and bridge hydrogen atoms. Terminal hydrogen atoms are bonded by two-center, two-electron bonding, whereas bridge hydrogens are bonded by three-center, two-electron. This type of bonding is called as banana bonding. And due to this banana bonding formation, diborane completes its electron deficiency. That is, its octet is completed and it is occupying or obtaining a structure of exactly like ethane. And exactly the same hybridization of ethane. What is that? sp3 hybridization. And apart from all this, we should also know how diborane is prepared. There are three very important methods of preparation of diborane. This should be noted very nicely, very clearly, because most of the time these are being twisted out and being asked. So we'll talk about the preparation of diborane. Three methods of preparation of diborane is there. One, treating boron trifluoride with lithium aluminum hydride. One, oxidation of sodium boron hydride with iodine. And lastly, boron trifluoride with sodium hydride. So there are three important preparations of diborane. One, BF3 with lithium aluminum hydride. One, sodium boron hydride, NaBH4 with I2. And lastly, BF3 with sodium hydride. So these are the important preparation. Now, this is one of the things which is to be all the time remember. This is the uses of boron and very important uses of boron. We have to keep it in mind because sometimes questions related to the uses are also being quoted or utilized. Now, uses of boron, when I talk about, boron fibers are used in making bulletproof vest and composite material for aircraft. Their fibers are utilized for making bulletproof vest and material for aircraft. The isotope, that is boron 10, is having high ability to absorb neutrons. Therefore, metal borides are used in nuclear industry as protective shields and control walls. Then the main application of borax and boric acid is in the manufacture of high resistant glasses, glass wool and fiberglass. They are high resistant for the glasses. They can withstand heat like that. Then borax is also used as a flux for soldering metals, for heat, scratch and stain resistance. This is, they should be resistant to heat, scratch as well as stain, glass coating to earthenware, and as an constituent of medicinals. We also know that the aqueous solution of boric acid acts as a mild antiseptic also. So these are some of the uses of boron. Now let us, after viewing the group 13 elements, now let us see whether we are in a position to answer these questions or not. So let us first look at the question number 1. The compound thallium triiodide consists of dash ions. Here, the element of group 13 is thallium and triiodide is the ion. Now, in this compound, what are the ions present? Now, as we have already discussed earlier, thallium is more stable in +1 oxidation state rather than +3 oxidation state. Therefore, first option, thallium +3, cannot be an option because thallium is good with +1 or stable with +1 oxidation state. I minus, it is not iodide ion, it is triiodide, that is third option. I3 minus, triiodide ion. So third option is the right one. It is not consisting of 1 and 2, it is consisting of 3. Instead of 1, if it would be in +1, it would be a correct option. So now the answer for this is the third one. As the formula is formulated as Tl plus I3 minus, and down the group +1 oxidation state is more stable than +3. So we're coming down to an answer that is the third answer. Now let us talk about the second question. Just now we have discussed with the uses of boron and its compounds. Now you can see this question. Borax is used for dash resistant glazed coating to earthenware. We have discussed this very clearly that it is having resistance to heat, to scratch as well as stain. So according to this, fourth option should be correct. That is, it is resistant to all of this: heat, scratch and stain resistant glazed coating to earthenware. So let us come down to the third question. Aqueous solution of borax is. Now, I have already discussed this point earlier. Let me once again revise it up. Borax, a salt. Aqueous solution, borax is added to water. When borax is added to water, what happens? Hydrolysis takes place. When hydrolysis takes place, what it is resulting in? In the formation of a base and an acid. Now, when borax is added to water, what we may expect? We may expect that we may get a base and an acid. So when borax is added, I am getting sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is what? Strong acid. And I am getting orthoboric acid. Orthoboric acid is what? Orthoboric acid is what? A weak acid. So I am getting a mixture of strong base and a weak acid. Strong base and a weak acid. That means my solution should be what in nature? Alkaline in nature. So my option comes to be which one? Third one, obviously. That is, borax dissolves in water. That is, borax, a salt. It dissolves in water to form sodium hydroxide, strong base, and boric acid, a weak acid. Therefore, the resultant solution of hydrolysis is alkaline. So that's simple. That is a technique that which we are utilizing over here is hydrolysis. A salt getting hydrolyzed in water, forming or resulting in the formation of acid and a base. Now let us come down to the next question. Number of hydroxy groups attached to boron in borax are. For this, we should be knowing the structure of borax or the formula of borax. Until and unless we know the formula or the structure of borax, we are unable to answer. So just we can see, as the formula of borax can be written as Na2B4O5, OH taken 4 times, 8H2O. So how many OH are there in its formula? 4. So the answer comes to be first one. This answer only can be answered if we know the structural or the chemical formula of. If you know the chemical formula of borax, then this answer can be easily given. The next question is this. They're asking us, anhydrous aluminum chloride produces fumes in air because of. Why do these produce fumes in air? Now, anhydrous aluminum chloride. Anhydrous means without water. Aluminium chloride, salt again. And when I add or in presence of moist air or in presence of air, what happens first? Aluminium gets combining, it will be resulting in the formation of hydrochloric acid. And this hydrochloric acid, when it comes in contact with the moist air, it will be giving us fumes. The process over here is hydrolysis. As aluminium chloride is anhydrous, it will be undergoing hydrolysis. White fumes is due to the presence of HCl gas. Anhydrous aluminum chloride is partly hydrolyzed in moist air to produce which gas? Hydrochloric gas. And this HCl gas combines with moisture in air and appears white in color. And the process over here is again hydrolysis. Now the next question which we can see, the product obtained when 1 mole of diborane reacts with 2 moles of ammonia at high temperature is. We already know that whenever diborane reacts with ammonia or any compound, it will be usually forming an adduct. It will be usually forming an adduct. Here, two things have to be noted. It is just told us diborane treated with 2 moles of ammonia. When I see only diborane treated with 2 moles of ammonia, I may select the option 1 and 4 as right. Because whenever we talk about an adduct, first and fourth option are the resultant of the adduct formed when diborane reacts with ammonia. But here, the second part of the question you can see, it is at high temperature. Whenever it is at room temperature or at normal temperature, adducts are formed, that is ammonia, that is option 1 and option 4 are absolutely correct. But whenever diborane is heated with 2 moles of ammonia at high temperature, instead of forming an adduct, it will be resulting in borazine, that is inorganic benzene. So we can come down to the answer as 1 mole of diborane reacts with 2 moles of ammonia to form an adduct without heating, as it undergoes cleavage reactions with Lewis bases. Hence, option 1 and 4 would be correct. But as heating is done, therefore it results in the formation of borazine. That is the second option, not the first and the fourth option. Here we have to keep it in mind that whenever diborane is treated with Lewis bases. Lewis bases are what? Lewis bases are those compounds which will be donating a pair of electrons ready. So ammonia, when I talk about nitrogen has a lone pair of electrons which it can easily donate out. That is the reason ammonia also acts as a Lewis base. And when diborane is treated with Lewis base, adducts are definitely formed. But apart from forming an adduct, the temperature is also considered here. So that is the reason it is giving us the option second one. Now, diborane cannot be obtained from. This is a simple question which we have already discussed, that is methods of preparation of diborane. Methods of preparation of diborane when I consider or when I say. I have already told you three methods of preparation. One, sodium boron hydride with iodine, boron trifluoride with lithium aluminum hydride, and boron trifluoride with sodium hydride. These are the three methods which I just now discussed, except the first one. So I can conclude that diborane cannot be prepared or obtained from first option, that is when I am treating borax with HCl. I have also given this point in the compounds of boron, that is whenever I treat borax with an acid, what will I am resulting to? I am resulting to orthoboric acid or just boric acid. So by first method, I am able to prepare what? I am able to prepare boric acid, but not diborane. So let us look at the answers. So according to me, I cannot prepare diborane by first, that is with borax treating with acid. As I have said, whenever borax is treated with dilute acid, I am resulting in the formation of boric acid. Whereas the rest of the three methods are giving me what? Diborane. So the option comes to be first one. Now, here the next question is, the self-protective oxide film of aluminium can be removed by. How you can remove that protective layer which is formed on aluminium? It might be because of the air reaction, protective layer is formed, or with concentrated nitric acid you get that first protective layer formed. Now, as I have said already, adding concentrated nitric acid makes the aluminium passive, because once the oxide layer is formed, there is no reaction with nitric acid. Reacting with chlorine. Reacting with chlorine interferes at the time of formation of oxide layer. But after the formation of oxide layer, there is no reacting with chlorine. Boiling with water also doesn't have. See here, protective oxide film should be removed without affecting the metal below. So the best way to do this is amalgamating with mercury. What happens when we do this? When I'm talking about this, what happens here is simple reaction takes place. The aluminium reacts with mercury, that is in presence of this, you get aluminium hydroxide and you get the metal. And this aluminium displaces that. So that is amalgam formation with mercury. So that is the reason the third option will be the correct one. Just now we discussed the chemical name of borax is. The chemical name of borax is sodium tetraborohydride. That is third option. We have already discussed that out. Now the 10th one, the halides of group 13 elements. This also we have discussed that we have already said that the halides formed by these group elements are deficient of an electron pair. Therefore, they may act to complete their octet structure. They may act as what? Lewis acid. So that's the reason what we have said. As halides have incomplete octet, therefore have a tendency to accept an electron and behave as what? Lewis acid. Because to complete their octet structure, they need one more pair of electrons. And that's the reason they act as Lewis acid. Now, next one, when we talk about boron nitride reacts with the caustic alkali to give. This reaction of boron nitride, that is Bn, reacting with caustic alkali, that is a strong alkali. What happens to the reaction? The simple reaction here is, you can see that whenever you react that boron nitride with caustic soda, you are getting tetrahydroxoborate 3 and ammonia. In the above mentioned options, you are not being given a tetrahydroxoborate 3. You are not being given, but you have been given ammonia, as that is, which is formed as a byproduct. That is given. So I will be going with what option? I will be going with the first option, as tetrahydroxoborate 3 is not mentioned. Now let us go with the next question. The elements which exist in liquid state for a wide range of temperature and can be used for measuring high temperature is. You know that we have already discussed when we were talking about the physical properties here, that Gallium has a very low melting point. That means a 303. And with this low melting point, it will be existing as a in liquid state in summer season. And it has a very high boiling point, 2676 Kelvin, which is that is the reason why it is useful measuring high temperatures particularly. Now, the next question. The exhibition of highest coordination number depends on the availability of vacant orbitals in the central atom. Which of the following elements is not likely to act as central atom in MF6 minus? That means it is an octahedral complex. For the octahedral complex, we need d electrons. And d electrons are available with aluminium, gallium, indium, but not with boron. That is the reason we can go with the option boron, but not aluminium, gallium, and indium. So, as boron does not have vacant d orbitals, so it will not have a octahedral geometry. Next question, what here being, when borax is heated with ethyl alcohol and concentrated sulfuric acid, vapors of triethyl borate are produced. When ignited, these vapor burn with a flame. Now, the question here is, when borax is heated with ethyl alcohol and concentrated sulfuric acid. First, borax does not directly react with ethyl alcohol. First, borax reacts with the concentrated sulfuric acid to give boric acid. This boric acid reacts with ethyl alcohol. And when it reacts with ethyl alcohol, you will be getting the vapors of triethyl borate. And these vapors burn with a green edge. Why? Because of the borate ions. Whenever there is borate bead test, that is borate bead test, which is very important. And that is the reason, because of the formation of borate ions, you will be getting a green edged flame. So you can see here, borax on treating with the concentrated sulfuric acid gives orthoboric acid. And this orthoboric acid, when treated with alcohol, is giving you triethyl borate, that is borate ion. When it is ignited, the vapors are green edge. That is one of the tests for boron compounds. The next question over here. Boron always forms covalent bonds. Yeah, because it's small. And second statement, the small size of boron favors formation of covalent bonds. Yeah, definitely right. So that is the answer 1. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are true, and statement 2 is the correct explanation for statement 1. So that is first option. Next question, 16th one. When orthoboric acid is heated, the residue is. This also we have discussed. When orthoboric acid is heated above 370 Kelvin, first what is formed? Metaboric acid. Then what is formed? Boric anhydride. So the final residue, what you are getting? Boric anhydride. That is third option. So when boric acid is heated above 370, metaboric acid is formed, which is on further heating gives boric anhydride. This is one of the reaction of boric acid. The next question here is, heating an aqueous solution of aluminium chloride to dryness will give. Heating aqueous solution of aluminium chloride to dryness. So what happens here? First, what we are getting here, when aqueous aluminium chloride means aluminium chloride is a salt. Then aqueous means it is undergoing hydrolysis, giving us what? Aluminium hydroxide. When this aluminium hydroxide is just a simple method of hydrolysis, aluminium hydroxide is formed. When aluminium hydroxide is heated to dryness, what we expect? We expect an oxide formation. So the answer comes to be here as aqueous solution of aluminium chloride is acidic due to hydrolysis. That is a weak base and a strong acid. Weak base is aluminium hydroxide. Strong acid is HCl. So that's why the resultant solution is acidic. Now, when I am heating this aluminium hydroxide, it will be converted to an oxide, that is aluminium oxide. So the option comes to be third one. Now, the next question is, Alzheimer's disease is caused by the deposition of metal. Which metal? Now, by the study and things like that, we have come down to know about. How we came down to know this? Because this metal, that is aluminium, is one of the reason for this. Why? Because when we use aluminium containers for cooking, we use aluminium for packing. So there are many things we are using for, in which we are using aluminium, and that enters the human body. And aluminium is neurotoxic in nature. That means it is causing neurodegenerative diseases. Alzheimer disease is also neurodegenerative disease, and that is because of intake of aluminium metal. So that's what we are talking about. Aluminium is neurotoxic and is suspected to be related in various neurodegenerative diseases. That is
Madam,
the reason we are talking about.
madam, stop.
Okay,
It's time, madam.
okay, sir.